Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Area 312 Rock and Metal Vodcast. I'm your host, Kent, and my co-host, Rex, is celebrating his anniversary with his wife, Jody, this weekend. We wish them a happy anniversary weekend. So hope everything goes well there. Today, friends, is the 19th of October, 2025. Without further ado, may I introduce our special guests. They taught us how to be frank and how to smash the guitar. In a world that screams for pleasing oneself, they cried out, "Ice Cream Sunday." And now it's time to oink and roll and live for Godarchy. Or as the world sees it, swine flew over the cuckoo's nest. As we welcome Carey, Kosher, Womack, and Paul Q-Pek from One Bad Pig. Welcome, gentlemen. It's an
Yeah,
honor to have you.
Hey,
thank you. Hello, hello.
Thank you both for being here. Thank you both for being here. And guys, it just makes sense. I've been a fan, so have a few pig discs here, got some bacon.
nice.
Um, been a fan
Nice.
since first hearing Smash back in 1989. I was a senior in high school, and guys, it only makes sense to start off at square one. I'd just like to ask, when did One Bad Pig begin? What's the scoop?
I'm letting Carey take that one. Go ahead, Carey.
Yeah, I went to the very first Cornerstone Festival, 1984, with a friend named Curtis Tarpley, and we had an awesome time. It was up in Grace Lake, Illinois in those days at the county fairgrounds. And so I came back and told all my friends that were into Christian music, Christian off the wall, off the beaten path music, that about Cornerstone and how awesome it was. And so the next year, the same friend Curtis and I, together with Paul Q-Pek and a guy that was a self-styled, uh, sort of uh, Japuza member from another mother. I mean, he lived out in West Texas, moved to Austin, but he was heavily influenced by Res Band and the Japuza group and had long hair, called himself Freedom, uh, which is a different kind of thing to call yourself out in West Texas, where his given name was Melvin. So, at any rate,
Yeah.
that was a story on him, and we all decided we're going to Cornerstone 85. I know 80, yeah, 85, which of course 40 years ago. And on the way, driving up from Austin toward Grace Lake, we stopped outside St. Louis at a Pizza Hut for lunch. And when we did so, they were doing a local promotion with a rock radio station in St. Louis called Kosher, and they were selling these wraparound chrome sunglasses that had the Kosher logo on it. I didn't realize it was a female pig named Sweetmeat, but I said, "Man, that is one bad pig." And was it Paul that said?
I said that sounds like the name of a punk band.
And we became that punk band. Paul on guitar. I was the lead screamer. Freedom played a little bass anyway. And Curtis Tarpley didn't play anything, but we said he could play dashboard and hubcap. And it was the running joke for our trip to Cornerstone. Throughout the week, we made up little choruses that we would yell and all sorts of things. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. We came home, and there were sort of two things happening in the Austin Christian music scene concurrently. One was that Paul worked at a small uh, AM radio station, Christian station, mostly talk, but some music, and he got to do some Christian music, Christian rock shows on the weekend. And there were a number of us that would hear about bands that had some connection to Christianity or what have you. One of which was a band that came through called Trouble. And when Trouble came to town, several of us decided we would go out and see what was going on with that. And the bands opening for them were mainly local punk bands. And from that grew a thing where several of us would go hang out at the radio station uh, uh, offices while Paul did his show. We'd hang out and just have fun. Then we would gather to pray after the rock show was over. And then we would go out to one of these local shows and try to witness to the kids. You know, that first time at the Trouble Show, there's these kids, 12, 13, 14, coming out all bloody and messed up in a variety of other ways. And we thought, you know, man, somebody ought to be reaching these kids. This is not where it's at, kind of deal. And so we started doing street witnessing. So that was going on at the same time that a number of us were trying to put together a local Christian music festival. And we were trying to find the bands that were more rock oriented and that kind of thing, but there's all sorts of stuff. And so we began to focus on the date of Cornerstone in a great big public park in Austin called Zilker Park, where they had a stage in sort of a natural amphitheater setting. And the Labor Day Christian Music Festival, 1985. And somewhere along the way, we said, wouldn't it be hilarious if this joke band, One Bad Pig, were to perform at the music festival? And so we said, why not? And Paul hooked up his drummer as a young kid. How old was Philip back then, Paul?
I think he was 15.
15.
Yeah.
The Paul Q-Pek band, which was Paul's serious band. And yeah. And we got a bass player, local guy named Kevin Phelan. And he actually is a relative of Lacey Sturm from, Flyleaf and all of that. Yeah. So at any rate, we started rehearsing and putting stuff together. We, Lifesaver covers, Undercover covers. Paul
Altar
did a punk.
Boys.
Yeah, Altar Boys. Paul did some arrangements of, like praise choruses, kind of punked up. And we wrote one original song, which was Anarchy is Prison. And because we'd found by street witnessing outside these clubs that, all the punk kids, they were all into the concept of anarchy. And we thought, hey, it doesn't really lead to freedom. It really leads to enslavement. And so we wrote this song. Paul had a friend that worked also at the radio station at that time, and she hated this kind of music, but had no affection for it at all. But she heard that song and said, that is powerful. And so off we went to the Labor Day Christian Music Festival. And I decided that I would do kind of a quasi tongue-in-cheek, quasi-serious sermonette, kind of riffing off of George Orwell's Animal Farm. And this natural amphitheater, which was a steep hill, and I came barreling down the hill after the band took the stage, through the crowd on their picnic blankets and things, and jumped on the stage, and it was just mayhem for about 15 minutes. And then afterwards, people said, that was the most powerful thing that happened that day. And there was a kid that prayed to receive Christ, and others that we talked to seriously after the thing. And we thought, well, let's just see what the Lord does. And that's how we began.
That's wonderful. So two questions out of that then, Carey and Paul. I don't know the year. So in 85, y'all were headed to Cornerstone, but should we consider this then the 40th year of One Bad Pig? or would it be more closer to 86 then?
It's technically the 40th year this year that we had our first performance. A lot of bands I've seen that celebrate different milestones. A lot of them celebrate it from the release of their first album, which if you did that with us, technically our first EP, A Christian Band, came out in 86. So if you want to be technical about it, of our first getting together, it would be 85. Our first recording was in 86. So, and we have big plans we're hoping for next year, and celebrating the 40th is going to be part of that.
Right. In fact, we kind of thought 85, so 25. Let's do it then. But we didn't get it together for 25. So we really think that, for that reason, among others, it's good to celebrate it from your first release date. So
yeah.
Well, we're still in that pocket. We're still in that pocket.
Oh yeah.
If Petra can do their 50th reunion for 5 years running,
for 4 or 5 years,
they're
still on their fifth, celebrating their 50th,
and now working on a new record, then we can kind of, like you said, it's just it's an idea of the time. It's sort of an amorphous kind of thing.
Well, happy 40th.
Thank you.
And I'm blessed to hear about some plans. Is that all you all might care to say at this juncture, or would you like to elaborate a little bit more about any 40th year celebration?
Well, what we are hoping to do and planning to do is to do a Kickstarter campaign. Our last one was for the album Love You to Death, which was, I want to say, 9 years ago.
2016.
All of a sudden,
2016, 9 years ago.
We just did it.
yeah. It seems like yesterday. But anyway, so we're hoping to do another Kickstarter campaign. Tentatively, we're looking at March 1st to kick that off. So that'll be about 30 days, hoping to raise funds to do a new record. And this would be a Christmas record. Yeah, and we are hoping to record that in May, and then hoping that it comes out first week of November next year, and that would coincide with a big concert in Austin, our kind of home base and where we were birthed out of, and where 3 of the guys in the band still live, and hoping to do a big concert to celebrate the new album. It'll be an album release concert, and also One Bad Pig's 40th anniversary, and also the 40th anniversary of A Christian Band album. We've even considered possibly, for the first time in decades, playing the entire Christian Band EP live. We haven't done that in a long time because we've had all these other songs, but to celebrate that, we could do that. And it would only take about 15 minutes.
Right.
to do that.
Have you guys given? So I love this.
Pretty short, and and it was fun. So so those are kind of the hopes and the dreams and the plans for next year. I know in the Chinese calendar it's the year of the horse next year, but for us it's going to be the year of the pig. So
that's
right. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
really weird off the wall question. Have you guys given any consider? I love this little, and there's something to be said for sometimes there's something to be said for the rawness sometimes of and the
Yeah.
honesty of things.
Oh yeah.
Striper's Yellow and Black Attack EP. I mean, you guys right here, Baron Cross had Believe, Bloodgood had Metal Missionaries. But have you guys maybe thought about re-recording this for the 40th, kind of with modern production values? Just a thought. I'm just throwing it out there in the pigsty. So,
I have not thought about that. But the main reason is I like it the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our fans do too. And some of the songs like Blow and Go 6, which became Isaiah 6, Anarchy is Prison, which became Godarchy, those in a sense have been re-recorded with better production values and overdubs and all the bells and whistles, But there are many of our fans, and us included, who really have an affection, as you say, for that early raw sound. I mean, we did one track of guitar, and when I go and play a solo, there is no rhythm guitar.
Right.
You just hear the bass.
That's okay.
It was, in a sense, that was live, know?
Yep.
So it's very, very raw, very punk, if you will.
Yep.
Obviously, over the years, we transitioned our sound and added more of thrash and metal and arena rock and then some more comedy elements.
Yeah.
But the way the Pig kind of started out, that's what's documented on that A Christian Band EP. So it is kind of a snapshot in time. I don't think we would ever try to re-record it.
Sure.
Hopefully we might be able to get it out on vinyl again. That would be kind of fun,
Yeah.
Because we had a very limited amount of vinyl that came out. I think there's only 750 of them that got out into the wild.
Yeah.
And so they're rare, very rare. And as I say, that was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So
wow.
if you have one of those, you have a rare item. Yeah.
Gentlemen, did you all set out to be a punk band, or is that just kind of how, when the Lord was piecing you all together as he does, is that kind of where the ball settled, if you will?
Very much where the ball settled. So Paul's
Carey got raptured. No.
Oh my!
Hey,
Little pig mayhem there.
There we go.
So very much where the ball settled. Paul's band was a creative, alternative flavored pop rock thing with all kinds of current musical influences and great lyrics and everything. And and as we said, Paul's serious band, and this thing really literally did begin as a joke. And even with the 1985 Labor Day Christian Music Festival, it was nothing but, a comedy sketch. I mean, well, I shouldn't say it was nothing but that was a large part of it, and we didn't really have visions of it going further. But what helped it to go further was that God touched people with it, even people that didn't like the music. And we were already involved in the street outreach, very informal, to kids that liked punk music. And so it was created to be that. And none of us were big punk music listeners. And we just thought, well, as Paul did, virtually all of the writing then, said, we're gonna make songs that we like, that are fast, and our conception of what punk music might be,
Yeah.
and we certainly weren't copying anybody. And
Right.
as we began playing some of the punk clubs around Austin, and in the early days, uh, it was these little punk clubs that were our most frequent venue. And then we started adding some Christian gigs around the area that had maybe, let Christian rock bands play. And then from there, regionally. Um, but we were very much targeted that those punk clubs early on, and we would have kids come up to us and say, "Hey, you guys sound a lot like GBH," and they say, "Oh, really? Thank you." It's like, okay, does anybody know what GBH sounds like? That sort of thing. So,
Right.
Yeah.
You were talking, Carey, and I can't, just this whole album, like from the first time that I heard it, it's going through my head, as you're, Godarchy there, the very first track as you're talking to me, and it's like I'm smiling, I'm beaming because it's like who else? And I liked some punk back then. I liked Suicidal Tendencies, I liked the Ramones, I liked the Clash. Who else sounded like One Bad Pig back in the 80s? Nobody. You guys were just awesome. And here comes Paul. And Paul, you're an accomplished. I mean, this is, you know, big punk music, but I can tell, Paul, you're an accomplished guitar player. And then Carey, you just have such a one of a kind delivery. And I mean, that's the hook right there, and then there's the message, which, it's almost, I don't know how to say it. Everything is fun and everything is joyful and a bit funny, if you will, like Looney Tune,
oh yeah,
underneath it, and it does come through. Underneath it is this serious message when you get to the heart of the matter.
oh yeah.
You guys were so great and still are. Let me ask you then. It's where the ball landed, where the Lord led you guys and put you. So then, who were some of your respective musical influences then in your personal life?
Hmm.
Well, I, you know, that's a great question. I really started, getting into contemporary music, rock music, this and that, in the early '80s. Um, Before that, I liked a lot of instrumental stuff. In high school, I was a trumpet player in our high school band, and so I was into Maynard Ferguson and Doc Severinsen and Herb Alpert and a lot of instrumental albums and things. But I always loved the contemporary sound that they had. And so then in the early '80s, when MTV came on, I believe it was '81.
Yep.
When MTV came out, I was like 18 years old when that hit. And so it just impacted me greatly. All this cool, new, awesome music, a lot of rock and roll, a lot of new wave, a lot of British stuff. And I just really, really got into that sound. And when I discovered that there was Christian music with the same sound, I'd gone to church all my life, but I had never heard, contemporary Christian music. I had missed out on the era that had Second Chapter of Acts, early Phil Keaggy, early Res Band, all that. I didn't know it existed. So as a freshman in high school, when I found out that it existed, it was just mind blowing. I got into all of it, picked up every little bit that I could find and saw that there was, I've always liked all the different styles, I mean, I had David Meese records and I had Andy McCarroll and Moral Support, I had a wide range, So, but the stuff that I was really into was more at the time, the early 80s. It was Tears for Fears, Duran Duran, The Call, The Alarm, groups like that. And so my band, the Paul Q-Pek band, which I was the lead singer for, we had more of that type of sound, I guess. So as Carey says, when the pig came along, at first Carey wrote all the lyrics and I wrote all the music. It's just the way we operated back then, and that's the way it is on the Christian Band EP. And so when I would write the music for the pig, as Carey said, I would just write pop music and play it really fast,
Yeah.
And just thought, this is what we need to do, for this band. Yeah. And the band went through kind of a progression between 86, when a Christian Band came out, and 89, when our next one came out, which was our first, big release, the Smash album. And what had happened was we had played quite a few gigs, both in the church and outside the church, in the clubs and such. And we found that because of our style and the way we played, even though we were being serious a lot of the times and we had a serious message, a lot of people were laughing at us. But they weren't laughing in a way that, oh, they're terrible and, oh, these guys are just ridiculous. They're laughing in a way that, almost like a comedy act. Like they were there to laugh. They wanted to have fun with it. So we started writing some songs like Looney Tune, that were deliberately funny. They had a message still, but it was just kind of fun and ridiculous. The music was funny, the way it would slow down and then speed up. The lyrics were funny, and Carey found he had a knack for writing some lyrics that had, some fun puns in there, and
let's be frank.
some fun things, and so that's why when we did the album cover for Smash. Mm-hmm. We were on Pure Metal Records, a division of Refuge at the time. The other bands that were on Pure Metal were like Bride and White Cross and Light Force and Rosanna's Raiders and stuff like that. And a lot of their album covers had this kind of gothic theme to it, or Lord of the Rings look or something. And it was kind of dark and kind of sinister. And we thought, I don't really want that, And so we came to their art department with the idea of just a white background, the four guys, some of them close up, some of them back, me on a skateboard, Carey just yelling like this. And so that when you saw the album, you would get the personality of the band right there. And that would be fun. It would be something that could be in a Christian bookstore and not, banned from the stores, something that they could, people could get behind and say, yeah, these guys have wild music and they look wild, but the message is really there and their hearts are in the right place. And it's fun. And at times it's funny. And also we started referring to our music as pig music because it was hard to classify. Early on we called it punk. And most people that listened to it called it punk. But there were other punk purists who would listen to our stuff and say, that's not really punk. Or it's kind of more metal, or it's thrash or whatever. And so we were like, whatever. It's pig music. We do whatever we want. And, we just have fun with it. It's mostly loud. A lot of it is fast. And we just have fun with it. So. Anyway,
And
that's kind of a little bit of the evolution. Carey had some other musical influences and such. I don't know if they
yeah,
showed up in One Bad Pig.
yeah, yeah. So the people would ask and have asked previously from early interviews on, well, are you more of a ministry band? Are you more of a fun band? Are you more of a what? And Paul was really the original one to formulate this idea. And he says, we are 100% about having fun and going crazy and putting on a great show. And we are 100% about ministry. It's not an either or. It's not a 50-50 or 60-40. It's, you know, all, all full speed ahead, hold nothing back, no matter what it is that we're doing. And we're doing it all, and we're serious about it all. So I grew up in a Southern Baptist church and was in the youth choir, and even as a younger kid did some of those, Christian musicals of the day, the Fiery Furnace, or There's Fire in the Furnace, whatever it was called, and some of those, and then the big youth musicals of the late 70s that were popular. And I was not a huge music listener as a teenager. I just kind of, I'd listen to radio occasionally. I had a few albums here and there, some of which were gifts. I wasn't big into music, but maybe as I started growing as a Christian, some of my earlier exposures to sort of Christian music or Christian popular music were we had a high school choir retreat, and the special guest sort of leader was a young Wayne Watson, who had a self-released album out, a custom record out, way before any record deals or anything. And I remember him sitting on a couch and playing and singing Dust in the Wind with, a number of kids gathered around him. And then, a few artists like that, not really any rockin' artists that hit me at that time. Knew a girl that, turned me on to Evie, the Mirror album, and some stuff like that. And then I was listening to KIXL AM, the radio station we've talked about in Austin back in the day. And one day I was listening, and Watergrave by the Imperials came on. And I thought, man, that is
Yes.
rocking. That is cool, And that was probably my first experience with a Christian rock song,
Had a little
And
guitar. Had a little guitar in there.
Yeah. Me
yeah, had a
too,
little
Carey.
guitar in there.
That was the first contemporary Christian stuff I heard, was the Sail On album, which had Watergrave, and it was Russ Taff's first record with the Imperials. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine too. That was my first thing I heard. Yeah.
Underneath my hoodie today for the church picnic, there I go. Underneath my hoodie, don't worry, I'm not going to take it off. There's a Russ Taff cover story T-shirt. Russ is so generous with his time, and he came out to our little church a few months ago and played for us and did some of his stuff. But anyway, that was a big deal to me. And then when I went off to college in Baylor, to Baylor University, in the fall of 1980, bringing my Imperials Priority cassette with me.
Yeah.
I met a bunch of other guys around the dorm who turned me on to artists like Larry Norman and Daniel Amos and Resurrection Band.
Yes.
And so that was the beginning of it for me. And like I said, I'd never been this huge music fan, But somewhere in that period, I became a huge music fan.
And
And I'm at the Christian bookstore 2 or 3 times a week,
yeah,
seeing, is there something new there?
yeah, I can attest to this. Now, at the time, I was buying cassettes, because I had a cassette player in my bedroom, So I had this big collection of Christian music cassettes. But first time I went to Carey's house, he collected vinyl, and this was back in what, 83, 84,
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
first went to his house. And he had Christian vinyl like you wouldn't believe.
Oh,
He
yeah.
he had all the Larry Norman, all the Res Band, all this stuff. It was amazing. I was floored. Yeah, he got into it real quick.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's awesome.
did.
And you
Yeah.
named so many great artists there, Carrie. And I wanted to ask you this because I grew up Baptist, initially Southern Baptist, and then then missionary Baptist, BMA, and whatnot. And I had read years ago, kind of following One Bad Pig, and I wondered if it was true that you were studying to be a Baptist minister. And I'm like, and you'll have to forgive me, Carrie, because where I came from were all the anti-rock seminars at the Baptist churches,
Right,
and
right.
even Christian rocks of the devil and all this stuff.
Yep.
And I'm like, how can Carrie Kosher Womack be a Baptist minister and be in One Bad Pig? So how did that? Was there truth to that you were studying to be a Baptist minister at one time?
Yeah. Well, I guess I was a junior in high school, or after my junior year, something like that, when I felt like I had received a call to be a pastor, a preacher, a minister, and that kind of became my plan. And even when I went off to Baylor in the fall of '80, I was planning to get a psychology degree, but then maybe go on to seminary after that. That was my plan. Uh, I got way too involved in some other things at college, including a relationship with a girl, and I flunked out of college, lost my scholarship, came home to Austin with my tail between my legs, and began doing youth ministry there. And of course, by this time, a budding alternative Christian music fan. And also, and then in 1984, became a part-time pastor at a little Southern Baptist church outside of Austin, near the lake area, and was there about 2.5, 3 years. And uh, at any rate, I was sort of leading a double life in a sense. Um, I will say this: doing the youth ministry and other things, I did some of those rock seminars. Um, and but I would, at the end of this, after I showed how horrible some of the secular music was, I would present, here's the Christian alternative artist, and here's some really good music with a strong message, and and give some reasonings why the music itself was not inherently evil and all of that kind of thing. So it was a balanced kind of message that I shared in those days.
Sure.
But it was funny because we'd have pig gigs, and Kinko's, I think, started in Austin, or it had some very early stores in Austin, that became
Yeah.
FedEx Kinko's. And there was one down near the University of Texas that Paul actually worked at one time, and it was near the campus and near some of the places we played and stuff like that. And so I would go down there to run off flyers for One Bad Pig shows that were at these punk clubs. The big one was the Beach and other places like that. I'd go, and so when I would go, because we're probably going to go post some posters, I go in my pig attire, and so I've got old torn up coat on and t-shirts and torn up jeans and some kind of boots or something, and my hair all messy and buttons and whatever, and a chain maybe, and I go in Kinko's and I run off copies. And then I've started pastoring this little Baptist church part-time. And so on a late Saturday night or early Sunday morning, I'd come in with a blue blazer and a tie and a Oxford button-down shirt. And I
Yeah.
actually had a guy one time say, do you have a brother or something that comes in here? No, it was just me. So um, it later happened that turned out that uh, some of the people at that church were really disturbed by that. I mean, it sort of came out. It was not like, you know, and today, brethren, we're going to talk about the glories of one bad pig. It was not promoted or mentioned really as a big thing at the church, but for the people that knew me better or what have you, talk about it just in a matter of fact kind of way. And unbeknownst to me, to some of the people there, it was a problem, a real problem. And ultimately, I was asked to leave that church. Now, there were a variety of reasons for that. And it would be easy to say, well, it was because of, one bad pig. I would say that's a small part of it. The great majority of it was I was immature and didn't know nearly enough about what I was doing, and that had a lot more to do with it than one bad pig. But it was a piece of it, and there were people that didn't receive it well, that's for sure.
I understand.
You'd have to see it to believe it, look at what it's true. Swine flu. Gives grace a home of being in the sky of blue. Swine flu. Slip the soda bonds of blood and when you do. Swine flu. You control me in the air, just then as blue.
Quick question, Carey. With you're known as the lead squealer for One Bad Pig. Does it hurt your voice to do what you do?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, if we had ever been a, 6 nights a week touring band, we would have had to Milli Vanilli it somehow, because there was no way. What we would do is 2 or 3 weekends a month, we'd go out for 2 or 3 gigs, and you know, if the sound system was good and the monitors were good, I could make it most of the way through one show. The second night was going to be rough, again, depending on how good the sound guy was, it might work out more or less okay. But it really took it out of my voice. And there were times in the studio, Billy Smiley would, he said, "Oh, do that again, scream like that again, squeal like that again," and between takes, my head is just pounding. There's the blood is pulsing through my veins. It's like my head is just going, and it hurts. Really hurts. And the only time it would feel better is when I'm screaming again. And all the pressure is pushing outward. So that was a real challenge for sure, but a lot of fun too.
Paul, Carey, I'd like to ask, when did your respective relationship with Christ begin?
I would say for me, I mean, I grew up in a strong Christian home. So my mom and dad had me in church from day one, and I can remember, I went to an American Baptist church. This was in Northern California, where I grew up. I can remember when I was 8 years old, walking down the aisle to make a public profession of faith, and then I was baptized. I remember that, but my parents say that I knelt down by my bed when I was 3 years old and accepted Jesus into my heart. I don't remember that, but I was fortunate in a way that I never really had any doubts about my faith growing up through my junior high and high school years, all that. Still attended church. I didn't get involved with drugs or alcohol, didn't fall into that crowd for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why, other than just God protecting me, I guess. And so I don't have one of those testimonies that's like a night and day thing, where it's this, road to Damascus transformation. But I just have a testimony of my family being consistent in their walk with God, and me just knowing that was the right way to go. Now, obviously, throughout my life, I've had different moments of challenge and doubt and reconfirming what my beliefs are, and going forward with God and asking him for guidance on decisions, things like this. And so, but so didn't have the kind of night and day conversion. It was more of just a child's faith that just continued on into adulthood. So
Very cool. Carey, how about you?
So I was also blessed with parents that were very active in church and had been most all of their lives, and had myself and my little brother in church regularly. We were kind of the Sunday morning, most Sunday evenings, and then Wednesday night kind of church family, as well as special events and things along the way. And of course, Sunday mornings were Sunday school and the worship service. And then I was 6 years old at Vacation Bible School, and the Vacation Bible School teacher led me to Christ. I can't tell you the specifics about that other than that, and went home and told my parents. And so the next Sunday evening, I think it was at a Sunday evening service rather than Sunday morning, it was one of the two, walked down with my parents to make a public profession of faith, and shortly after was baptized. And as I hit my teenage years and dealt with a lot of insecurities and stuff like, junior high age kids would, and, not the best self image and whatever, um, uh, you know, began to dabble with some other things. And I had never really begun to grow as a Christian, and look for some acceptance in some different kinds of ways. But when I look back, I started to grow as a Christian after my 10th grade summer. I think it was like, and I believe I've got the sequence right, but like after 7th and 8th grade and 9th grade, uh, summer youth camps, that our church had. It was a great big Baptist church. So, a lot of the Baptist churches had like an association youth camp, and it would be youth from a bunch of churches. Our church was so big, they, went to the same camp, but just had their own kind of deal. But after each of those summer camps, or during each of those summer camps, I rededicated my life to Christ. And something tells you, okay, it must not have taken if it keeps happening every summer. And really, there was basically no real change. I was sincere at the moment, I was sincere at the time. But after 10th grade, that summer, when I made a similar commitment, um, during youth camp, I began to read my Bible one chapter each and every night. And I'd say a prayer before I read the chapter, and a prayer after, and I would try to underline something that meant something to me in the chapter. Certain chapters of the Bible, certain books of the Bible, it was hard to find that thing, especially with the level of understanding that I had. But I would try to find something, that meant something to me and underline it. And I was pretty regular with that and faithful with that. And I just began to grow spiritually very rapidly at that point. And when I struggled with wondering if I was really saved or not, even a little, at times beyond that, I would look back and I could remember that even at 6 years old and thereafter, when I'd made that public profession, I could remember paying attention and trying to sing the hymns and listening to what the preacher had to say and having some favorite stories he would tell and other things like that. So I recognized that God was at work and that I was responding in a way that showed that I had been made alive or quickened to these truths in a way that I had not been before. And so I felt better about the fact that yes, I was saved at that time, but the growth, really substantial growth didn't occur until quite a bit later.
How did you capture the attention of Pure Metal Records for Smash?
Well, this mainly came through Billy Smiley.
Okay.
Billy Smiley was a founding member and keyboardist and guitarist with Whiteheart, band Whiteheart, and he had produced some other Christian artists, Margaret Becker, Jeff Moore in the Distance, and some others. And Whiteheart was coming to Austin, where we all were. They were coming to do a show. And by this time, this was in 88, I believe, kind of late 1988. So we had the Christian Band EP. We had little cassettes made up of it. And we were able to give Billy a cassette of a Christian band. And apparently he listened to it on his tour bus. And he told us when he listened to it, he laughed. It made him laugh. Okay. So he said to Carey and I specifically, said, would you guys like to go out with me after the show, out to dinner? I'd like to talk to you guys. We were like, yeah, great. So we had a dinner meeting with Billy Smiley, and he said he was looking for a rock band to produce. He said, but he was hoping to find someone that was more of a Bon Jovi type. Bon Jovi was very big at the time. So he's looking for this arena rock thing. He said, but there's something about what you guys are doing. There's something there, he says, and it makes me laugh, and it's powerful, and it's fun. And he said, what he'd like to do is bring us up to Nashville, where he had access to recording studios up there that could do some songs with us on spec, meaning it wouldn't cost us any money yet for the studio time, and he would try to get us a deal based on that demo tape that he would produce of us, and in the studio, and if we signed with a label, they would pay back the studio, right? So he asked us to pray about it and to get back with him. So Carey and I probably prayed pretty quickly because we thought this was a great, awesome idea, and we were very excited about it. So we did go up to Nashville and we recorded, I think it was, I want to say 7 songs, which are on the Smash album. There's 12 songs on there, I believe, and I think we did 7 of them at that time. And Billy, then after we were done, Billy had some of his Whiteheart friends and studio musician friends come in and add to what we did and kind of sweeten it up, because this was what he was used to. He wasn't used to kind of the punk aesthetic of things. He was used to the, CCM studio, arena rock, sound or whatever. So he kind of did that with some of our tunes. And he shopped this demo of the 7 songs around to everybody. He had connections at the time. Whiteheart was on Sparrow Records, so he played it for Billy Ray Hearn at Billy Ray's house. He played it for his connections at Myrrh, Word. He went to Benson. He even went to Frontline, which was in L.A. at the time and was one of our favorite, record companies, because they had everybody, had all the cool alternative bands, So, and they passed on us. Everybody passed. Nobody said yes. And so Billy called in a favor. He had been college roommates with a guy named Ray Nenow. Ray was the president and kind of owner of Refuge Records. And they had this division called Pure Metal. And Billy said, hey, I've got this band, One Bad Pig, kind of a punk metal thing. And, do me a favor to give them a record deal, And so basically, sight unseen or unheard, Ray Nenow trusted Billy enough to say, yes, no problem. And so we signed a deal with Refuge Records, with Pure Metal, went back up to Nashville. We had a new drummer by this time who was our old drummer, Philip, from the first couple of gigs that we did. He had to leave the band after that because he was too young. His mom said that he couldn't be in the band. So we had a couple different drummers throughout those years between 86 and 89. But then when we knew we were going to get signed, we asked Philip if he would join the band again, and he said yes. We came back up and did, we recorded at that time then Smash the Guitar, Looney Tune, I'm Not Getting Any Older, Frat Rats, and something else, which I can't remember. Yeah. People Cry Out.
Yeah.
And so those are the ones that Philip played on. And so anyway, that is how that happened. And it was amazing because they had distribution not only in the US, but in different parts of the world. And so this Smash album was available in South Africa, and it was available in Brazil, and it was available in Europe, in Germany, and Sweden, and England, and all that. And because of that, we were able actually to play for the first time overseas in '89 when the Smash album came out. That summer, we played in England at Greenbelt Festival. Mm-hmm. And it was just an amazing thing to do. Mm-hmm. But that really opened up doors big time for us, was the Smash album. Yeah.
Well, then, gentlemen, I'm curious, and perhaps it's Billy Smiley as your producer at the time. I've always found it very intriguing that your subsequent albums were on Myrrh, because I'm like, that's quite a feat for a hard band to get on, word Myrrh. And so,
yeah.
How did that transpire that you actually got on Myrrh?
I'll let Carey try this. Go ahead, Carey. If you need any help, let me know.
Yeah, jump in as you need to. But basically, a couple of things were happening. Billy was a little disillusioned with the way that his old buddy, his old roommate, and Refuge and Pure Metal were treating him and treating us. He didn't feel like they were following through in the ways that they should, and he felt like there had been a good response to the album, and that that we deserved some better treatment and some better opportunities and that kind of thing. And he was not in a position where he really wanted to continue to work with them. And of course, he was our professional connection to the industry, really. Um, but by this time, of course, some of the labels had seen, okay, there's something there. They appeal to people, and they're doing some things, and people have fun at their shows, and they're serious about the gospel, and all of those things were kind of coming true. And so as Billy began to look around again, he got in touch with Myrrh Records, and Myrrh. And I'll say this about Myrrh: they were looking at that point in time, and one of our other great stories is the Johnny Cash thing. Johnny, as it turned out later, was looking to find a way back into the youth market to make his sound more current again and appeal to younger people. And of course, he successfully did that with the American Recording Series, not through One Bad Pig, but in a similar way, Myrrh was trying to embrace more of the rock sound and more youth-oriented sounds. And so we were a possibility. It was about the same time that they picked up Holy Soldier and some other artists that kind of pushed the envelope out for what Myrrh had been thought of in the past. So one of their A&R guys, Mark Maxwell, flew out to Austin and met with us at a hotel there. He flew out on a red-eye flight, met with us, talked with us, heard, what our stories were, what our intentions, our vision, and what our values were. And, was our faith real? What's the band all about? And took that, information back to the higher ups. And it was a little bit of a tough thing to negotiate. Sorry, because we were still. Uh-oh.
You're
There
fine.
we are. Hello. It was a tough thing to negotiate because we were still still had contracts with Refuge Per Metal, and Myrrh really, though, was intent to try to go ahead and sign us. And so a lot of the upfront money that would have been like a signing bonus to us and a signing advance for the members of One Bad Pig went instead to pay off Pure Metal, Refuge, so that we could get on with Myrrh. But that's where it started. And this time we went into it, kind of knowing that we had a recording budget, knowing, that we would do it with Billy and all of that kind of thing. And we were off to the races. And it was a really good experience.
Yeah, we were amazed. It was a huge leap, obviously, from Refuge to Myrrh and Word. When we got signed with Myrrh, which was amazing, they flew us to Hollywood to do a photo shoot. It was like, this is One Bad Pig we're talking about here. Just pick any alley, and you're fine. But they flew us to LA and had all these clothes at the photo shoot that we could pick through and stuff. And they had the guy that did the photo shoot this was for the Swine Flu album, The guy that did the photos had just gotten back from Australia, and he was shooting U2 there. And it was like, yeah, this was a high dollar guy. And and Murr hired some artist to paint the skateboard that's on the cover of the Swine Flu album, and original artwork, on an actual skateboard, and just, it was just crazy. And then of course, Carey and I, being the CCM fans that we were, we always read the magazine every month, CCM magazine. And Murr, for the Swine Flu album, took out a 2-page ad in the CCM for the Swine Flu record for One Bad Pig,
Yeah.
and it was just like, wow, this is crazy. And of course, we were up in Nashville every year at the GMA week, which had the Dove Awards, and all that. And because we were on Murr and the weight that the voters kind of put behind that, at the time in 89 and 90 and 91, they had a metal category at the Doves, metal album of the year and metal song of the year. And we were nominated in both those categories in 90 and 91 for the Swine Flu and for the Ice Cream Sundae albums. So we're at the Dove Awards. One year we're sitting behind Sandy Patty, out there, just like, here we are, But it was great because we got to meet a lot of our CCM heroes, and all that. And but it was a different kind of time, It was just an amazing ride.
World is like an ice cream sundae. World is like an ice cream sundae. World is like an ice cream sundae. It's all going to melt someday. Ice cream! Wow! You scream! Oh! We all scream for ice cream! We all scream for...
From 89 to 92, I mean, you guys were smoking hot on the barbecue pit. Top One Bad Pig.
Yeah.
I'm curious then, and maybe it was the fickleness of the music community, but you guys were on fire, released a string of, great albums, and then you kind of called it a day at one point. So I'm curious, if I may ask, why did you call it a day? And then thankfully in 2016, you came back with this. So the two-parter is calling it a day, why? And what was the catalyst for you guys to come back to reconvene for Love You to Death?
I'll go first on this real quick. In late 91, I had always wanted still to do kind of a solo artist thing myself, still be a singer. And with the Pig, I wasn't that, it was something different. And so I had an opportunity to move up to Nashville. And so in late 91, I believe is when it was, I did that. And so for the 90s, I lived in Nashville. Now for about a year there or so, we still did the Pig with me living up there and the guys living in Austin. When we would do a show, I would travel to that city and they would travel there, or they'd pick me up if it was on the way, whatever. But we made it work that way. Still continued to do shows. But then I really felt at a certain point like God was telling me that it was time to leave the band. And so I really felt convicted about that. I wanted to go forward with my solo thing. And so I sent the guys a letter that said as much, And so also at Murr, they were, after we did 3 records with them, the last one was the live video, Blow the House Down. Our stuff was selling okay, but it wasn't in the hundreds of thousands, like some of their top artists. And Murr, signed quite a few artists at the time, and then had to do a little bit of a cleaning house thing and let some people go. So we were one of the ones that were let go. We did put out a best of album on what was the record company, Carey?
That was Diadem, wasn't it?
Diadem. Yeah, yeah. And Billy helped kind of orchestrate that. We put a few new songs on there and put that out. But by that time, I had left the band, and the Pig though did not stop. They kept playing a lot of local gigs and with different guitar players, and they finally settled on this one guy named Lee Haley, who's with the band now, but he was their guitar player for quite a while. And the Pig was invited in 2000 to play at Cornerstone again, and they asked me if I might want to come and play with them. I was still living in Nashville at the time, that summer, and so I did. And that was kind of a reunion gig kind of thing for me. I hadn't played with the band in, probably 7, 8 years. And so that was awesome. And so from time to time, then I would do these little reunion gigs. We had some gigs we did in 2005 in Austin. It would usually always include Austin, our home base. But we also played that year at Sunshine Festival in Minneapolis. And so we'd have these little reunions every once in a while. And then getting back together and recording again was obviously a big step. But yeah, I was definitely away from the band for several years. But the Pig never stopped. They just weren't actively recording or on a label, that type of thing. But Carey can tell you more about that time.
Yeah, and I don't know that we had a huge amount of direction or drive at that time, and I was concentrating on sort of where my life was headed, and young marriage and kids and all of that. And then my family moved to Tennessee, uh, late 90s, for me to complete my undergrad and then go on to seminary. And so we did that. And so, that was made us even more spread out, with me in Tennessee. Yeah, go ahead.
1 second. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
So anyway, I'm in Tennessee, and becoming a pastor at a uh, Cumberland Presbyterian Church, and going to seminary, and so I've got a lot of school, family, church responsibilities going on. There wasn't a whole lot going on, and I think kind of one of our slogans has become never say never, and there was never any official breakup or anything like that. It was just sort of you know, put the pot on the warmer, and just let it sit there and see what comes up next. And a lot of us were at different places in our lives. Uh, but every so often, I'd get to come back to Austin, or Paul would get to come back to Austin, and see the guys, and maybe we'd go to a restaurant and have dinner together, that kind of thing. And we would talk about whether we had interest in doing something else, doing something new. Would we ever want to do something again? And what do we still believe, and so forth and so on. And there was always a level of interest of some kind, and lots of fond memories and that kind of thing. And then our original bass player, Squealin' Phelan, Kevin Phelan, his dad became interested in writing a self-published book about One Bad Pig. And we all got together over at his house, and he had a long interview and taped it, and we just talked, about the history of the band, and what we were doing now, and what our desires were, what our dreams were, and sort of coming out of that, was the thought, why not? Let's get serious about doing another album because A, it's been a lot of fun and we could have fun doing it. And B, because we think we have something to say and a unique way to say it, and it still needs to be said just as much as ever. And so that line of thinking led us into the, working toward the Love You to Death album. And we were really, really pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Paul Rohr back on drums. I mean, he's a dynamo.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Love Paul. Carey, you touched on this. Are you a Presbyterian minister today?
I am.
Okay.
And in the Cumberland Presbyterian denomination, which is a little, I'd never heard of it before until I stumbled into a church. There was a good friend of mine and Paul's. He was our pastor at one time, and he led worship teams, and he had a number of bands, and Paul and he were in bands together, Maury Milliken, and he became the pastor. Well, he was one of our pastors at the church we all attended back in the day, called First Church of the Heart Set Free, and it changed its name to Mission Hills Church. And it was just an independent, non-denominational church. I used to call it charismatic light. A lot of the theology was, I mean, it had modern worship and people lifted their hands and whatever, but it was very, very balanced and had really great theology and that kind of thing. And it was very involved in missions and very involved in doing practical ministry. And at any rate, Maury and his wife were looking to go as missionaries to Turkey. They had learned the language, taking classes on the side. And a few months before they were due to go overseas, the Lord began working in their hearts and saying, this is not right for us and for our family at this time. And they went through a long period of deciding what to do at Mission Hills, and they ended up leaving that church. And Maury, who had been teaching and leading music for a living, was now running a sandblaster for a living. And he had an old seminary professor that called him up and said, hey, how would you like to, fill the pulpit at this place called St. Paul Cumberland Presbyterian Church? And he said, fine. And within a few days or a few weeks or whatever, he was a candidate for the ministry with them. And some time later, he was ordained and became the official pastor of that church. And some months later, about a year later, my wife and I joined them there. And after we'd been there a few months, Maury and his family promptly left for North Dakota. And I'm going to this church, St. Paul Cumberland Presbyterian. When I don't know the answer to something, I'll invent a story for what must have happened. I thought there must have been two Presbyterian churches, Cumberland Presbyterian Church and St. Paul Presbyterian Church, and they merged, thus the name. Little did I know that there was a group in America called the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. And so I found our family found ourselves there and members, and I helped out there in a number of ways. And a couple of years later, we got a new pastor, and he said, what would you say if I could, and I had become even while Maury was there, a candidate for the ministry within the denomination. But I never really pushed it forward, didn't finish the education that I needed to, and a number of other things. So this guy comes in a couple of years later as a new pastor and says, Carey, what would you do if I could get you into a Cumberland Presbyterian college, get it paid for, find you a place to live, maybe a church to preach at, maybe some money for books on the side, what would you say? And I didn't go back to church for 2 weeks because that was a pretty scary proposition for my wife and I with 3 small kids. And, um, but nevertheless, later that summer, at the end of the summer, we moved to McKenzie, Tennessee, for me to go to Bethel University and then go on to a place called Memphis Theological Seminary. And I began pastoring a Cumberland Presbyterian church there. And sometimes I like to say, sort of a short way to explain it to people is country Presbyterian. There's a number of polity differences. There's a number of theological differences from mainline USA, but suffice it to say, it was birthed out of the revival movement, the Second Great Awakening, the Great Awakening that happened in the early 1800s, and the Cumberland Presbyterian Church was a product of that, occurring around the Cumberland and Tennessee River valleys, and led to a whole bunch of other churches in American, church history of the time. But I found that what they preached about salvation was very much what my pastor had preached, growing up at Hyde Park Baptist Church in Austin. So
Very cool. I knew you were still active in the ministry. And Paul, you are still, of course, with One Bad Pig, but you are also still out doing music. And I just wanted to ask you, so our viewers and fans would know what you're up to musically today.
Well, I actually, it's my full-time thing, which is cool because I've always had all kinds of odd jobs all my life, but I live in the Orlando area, and it's a huge tourist destination, obviously, and they've got tons of venues and places where they feature live music. And so after I'd been here a year or so, I started to see all these different places and meet up with different people who did this type of thing and see what I could do to get involved in that and maybe make a living doing it. And so that's what I've done. I play acoustic guitar and sing, and I do mostly secular 70s and 80s pop and rock songs, that the oldies that people love, and that I kind of grew up with, and just that's what I do.
Very cool. Very,
Yeah.
That's all.
and it's very cool because there's that old another Christian rock artist from years back that also moved to Florida. And he became a pirate and did pirate songs. That was Randy Matthews.
Oh yeah.
And so that Paul doesn't have to dress up in a pirate costume is a big plus.
Oh goodness. Next to the last question, guys. Next to the last question. Is the pig's name Oink? What's the pig's name? Does the pig have a name?
I don't believe
no name.
The pig has a name. No, as I say, the one that it's was originally modeled after was the Carey pig, who we later found out was named Sweet Meat. But we've never called our pig Sweet Meat, and it's gone through some different stylistic iterations over time. We pretty much stuck with the Murr Records kind of idea of the pig there, but no, I don't think, Carey, I don't think we've ever named.
We never did, and I'm glad. I do think there's just sort of a common understanding before some fan informed us of the sad reality that that pig was sweet meat, a female pig, but we always had kind of a common understanding that it was a male pig, but there's no way we can prove it. And
Yeah.
at any rate, I think he's a male pig. I will say that there was a time that we did a show. We brought Undercover into Austin, and we opened up the show for them, and it was at an all ages club, and we had our flyers and posters up everywhere. And there's a group of young girls, several, hundred yards away, maybe not quite that far. And they see some of us walking outside. And of course, they've seen all those posters, and they pointed at me and they said, "There it is. There it is." So, in a sense, I am one bad pig.
They thought he was
You
the
are
pig.
one bad pig, and that's right. So
Well,
there you have it.
They thought he was the pig.
Yeah.
I grew up with Porky Pig. I didn't know if maybe that was Punky Pig. So
Punk.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody, I can't remember who, found like a barbecue place or sandwich place that used that Myrrh pig as their logo at that barbecue place. I have no idea, how they found it, where they got it, but it's a real deal.
There's been a few of those, and fans
Yeah.
bring those to our attention every once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know what we can do about it. I don't think we're in the mood to try to sue anybody or tell them to cease and desist, because we don't care. And
Right.
so, yes, but that's happened more than once.
Yeah.
Where people have used that image, which is our image of the pig,
right.
and they've used it for their products. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe we need to add barbecue at the merch table. I don't know.
Maybe so, yeah.
It's,
Feeling low, smoke a joint, cuss real loud, make a point, rock and rolls, all you play, always get your way. Where you going? Where you been? Your cruddy heart is full of sin. In the words of Kenneth Hagan, face the facts. You're a pagan! You're a pagan! With a capital P! You're a pagan! Full of idolatry! You're a pagan! Dinosaurs to be! Face a pagan, like pagan! You're a pagan!
guys, if you could make a brief statement to make a lasting impression with your friends and your fans out there, what would you wish to tell them?
Well, I would say, with my experience with the pig and with God, it is true that God can use the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. That was something that we found early on when we thought what we were doing was a novelty or a one-off thing or kind of a joke, as Carey said. But our hearts were in the right place. The message was the truth. And we were open to being used by God in however he saw fit. And so I think one of the main messages I get about the history of the pig is that God can use anybody, and that's proven in different biblical stories, of course, but it certainly has been true in our lives. There's been times in our lives where we've been up and down, or felt close to the Lord, or felt a kind of lost or in a valley, but we always receive encouragement from people when we get that letter or we get that text that says, man, One Bad Pig and your music, you guys' ministry, it really helped me at a time in my life when I needed it, or boy, it formed the way I think about God and about the world. And it's just, you think, man, God really did use what we did and who we are, and that we were obedient to just be open to whatever he had us do. The creativity that we had and that we showed. So God can use you. no matter who you are, no matter what you do, if you submit those things to him, he can take it places that you never would have imagined.
Carey, what would you say?
As Paul began speaking, I was thinking the very same words, that God chooses, the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And that really is a strong, lasting impression, reality that comes from our point in the band. I am amazed with Paul Q-Pek as a musician, and more, and not in necessarily all the conventional ways that you might think of. There are rock and roll guitarists that can shred more than Paul does and that kind of thing. But I don't know anybody that can pick up anything, any object, and make it make music like Paul can. It was so. I've already lost my succinct statement. Sorry about that. But when we were doing "Love You to Death" and we were doing the Sunday school medley, Sunday school rock, and there's that mariachi section, and Paul said, "Well, I brought my trumpet." No, was it your trumpet? Was it Rohrback's trumpet?
No, it was mine.
It was your trumpet. He said, I hadn't played this thing in years.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd bring it along, just in case. And, maybe we'll put a little mariachi thing, into Sunday school rock. And so they put him on the microphone. He hadn't touched the thing in years. And he plays the part, and it's one or two takes and it's done. And he says, "Hey, you know what? And it sounds great." And he says, "You know what? I think, it'd sound cool with a harmony part, wouldn't it?" And so they turn on the tape recorder again. He plays the harmony part off the top of his head, and boom, there it is, And I am convinced that you can put anything that makes a noise in his hands, and he'll make music with it. And that he knows how to write a hook, and he understands musical feel and things like that more than many of the great instrumentalists do. I really believe that about Paul. So, and of course, Rohrback is a monster at what he does, and Philip's a really good drummer, and but for the most part, the other guys that have been in the band are not. They're fine, they're competent, but they're not some great shakes, amazing musicians. And I'm not a singer at all. And I'm not a musician at all. And God has chosen those foolish things, like we said, to do great things and to change people's lives. And what a humbling and rewarding thing that is, as Paul mentioned, to hear that. And I think if I were to say anything, it would be that the things that we believed and that we sang about in those songs, and that we preached from the stage, and that we prayed with people, sometimes for extended periods after a show, all of those things are still true. That Jesus loves you, and Jesus will do all kinds of things and use all kinds of things and all kinds of people to let you know that he loves you and that he wants to have a relationship with you, and that he can turn your life into something really special that has great purpose and meaning to it, something far beyond what you could ever put together or manufacture on your own. And that if you will, again, as Paul says, simply open yourself to him, open yourself to that love, open yourself to that truth, and do your best to follow him. It's not going to be easy sledding. There's going to be plenty of ups and downs along the way. There'll be days maybe periods of time that you just feel miserable. There'll be some great highs as well. But in the end, you will find that you are following the truth, and that it has all been worth it, and that there is something beyond imagining at the end of it all for all of us who love Jesus and follow him.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. And um, we're going to go to scripture closeout. We call it our message from home, and we just like to read a verse or two of scripture. It's something that something from something the band has done. Maybe it's a song title, a lyric, or something that reminds us of God's word, and keeping the main thing the main thing. And so, gentlemen, message from home today. It's from Get Your Hands Dirty from Love You to Death. And it reminded me of Matthew 25:37 through 40. It says this, then the righteous will answer him, Jesus, Lord, when do we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? Then the king, Jesus, he will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And that's what Get Your Hands Dirty reminds me. That's the scripture. And so just keeping the main thing the main thing. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Carey, for your time and for ministering to us for years through the message in the great music. And I'm excited, friends. 40 years of the pig.
Yeah.
Kickstarter soon to come for
Yeah.
2026. And you can find the description in the links in the description below, is what I'm trying to say. You can find the links for One Bad Pig in the description below to stay up with all that. So, Paul and Carey, we'll wave goodbye to our friends, but stick around for one more moment. We'll close this out. Take care, everybody, and thank you for watching.
Love you guys.
This little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Won't let Satan blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let Satan blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Gentlemen, I want to be respectful. I do have a few more questions. Is it okay to ask a few more, or are we on a time crunch?
I'm fine.
Where are you at,
I'm
Carey?
okay. I'm okay.
Okay. All right. I'll ask a few more. I want to be respectful. Poor Carey's in his car, friends. He's got a church picnic going on right now. So, do you have time
I got a message from my wife a few minutes ago, said we've all gone home. I'll see you at the house. So I might be in a little trouble, but I should have been, we had tried so hard to schedule this time.
Right.
And then when the rain date thing kicked in, I kind of dropped the ball a little bit, but anyway, I'm good for a few more questions. That's the
Okay.
bottom line.
I will ask just a few more then. Last question, gentlemen, and then we'll do our scripture closeout. So that way maybe Carey's wife won't be too mad at me. Guys, if you
She
can
won't be mad at you.
okay.